Before working at Cub, Jim was an Associated Press reporter in Wisconsin, where he covered Senate and presidential campaigns, poverty issues, and the Green Bay Packers. Ouch. But who can forget that Jim was probably one of the first to give everyone in the North Shore Senior Center audience a free LED light bulb. I may still have mine. It's working that long, Jim. Jim Chilson has a degree in journalism and history from Marquette University and a master's degree in journalism from Marquette. Let's give a big welcome to Jim Chilson.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much, Don, and thank you to the North Shore Senior Center. I always love speaking to you, and I don't do this as much anymore, so I hope I can do you all justice, because you always are a great audience. So thank you. One thing about my time at the AP, I knew that I wasn't going to be a reporter for life. The time that I got lost, the only time I covered a Packers game, I got lost in Lambeau Field, did a couple laps around Lambeau Field, and somehow ended up in the locker room of the Miami Dolphins, which was the opposing team. They had just lost, and Dan Marino was very grumpy, and I find myself, I'm panicked, covered in sweat, and I find myself face to face with Dan Marino he's in a towel, that's it, in a towel, and holding a beer and a brat. And he was very grumpy. I tried to carry on an interview, and that was one of the moments that I knew that I'm probably this is not something, if I want to stay married and if I want to have a life, that I probably should get out of journalism. But the exciting thing is that Cub has been just as exciting, and it's been just as rewarding. And it's I just feel very honored to be able to work at the Citizens Utility Board, and be able to advocate for consumers. So I'm going to share my screen. And Jill, thank you so much for helping me out here. I know that the title of this is the State of Utility Affairs, and I thought it would be fun is I'm going to give a quiz, a 10-question quiz, and that's how I'm going to give my presentation. And it'll give you an update on what's going on in the utility world. We don't have time for you to yell out answers or to give answers in the chat, but just keep score in your head how you do, and then you can see how many of these questions you get right. And I hope that at the end of this, you feel like you've been updated on the state of utility affairs. So I'm going to share my screen. Oh. And we have the lap. We have the, hold on a second. Here it is. Can you all see that? Can you see my presentation?
Yeah, it's not in presentation mode though, so yeah.
Thank you, Jill. I appreciate you.
Thanks. Oh, no worries.
How is that, everybody? You see that? So thank you, Jill, for talking me through that. So, all right. Great. So, Don, you gave a really nice intro. The Citizens Utility Board, or CUB, was created back in 1983. It was actually originally an idea of Ralph Nader, who thought that there should be a representative of utility customers in each state fighting for utility customers. And thanks to the work of CUB Illinois, we have a strong presence in the Midwest. Over the last couple of years, with the help of CUB Illinois, CUB Minnesota has started. These are independent organizations from CUB Illinois. We have a CUB Minnesota, we have a CUB Michigan, a CUB Ohio, and CUB Wisconsin actually was around even longer than CUB Illinois. And of course, out in Oregon, there's also a Citizens Utility Board. So we're very proud that we've created this situation where we have a presence in the Midwest. And a lot of times there are regional issues that impact our utility bills here in Illinois. And it's helpful to be able to share resources with these other CUBs and share expertise. So we represent utility ratepayers before the Illinois Commerce Commission, in the Illinois General Assembly, and before the courts. Right now, we are suing ComEd in federal court to try to get a fair refund for consumers after the company's corruption scandal. We all know about that. We also help individuals. This is the part that makes me most proud to work at CUB, is that we have a toll-free consumer hotline that takes calls. As I speak right now, there are people taking calls from the toll-free hotline, and these are people who are frustrated with their utility companies. They have questions about their utility companies. They have complaints. Maybe they're not being treated very well. And we have experts manning the phones and have a lot of patience and do a very good job. And I have seen that crew, the Consumer Advocacy Department, save people thousands, hundreds, if even thousands of dollars by spotting errors on utility bills. And I always tell people, can't guarantee that we're always going to be able to cut your utility bill if you call CUB, but at the very least, you'll become an educated consumer, and consumer education is so important, and that's how you cut your utility bills in the future. Please go to our website, citizensutilityboard.org. There was a gentleman asking about cable rates earlier. He was joking that he has a two tin cans and a string. That's his telecom service. We just put out a phone choices guide, and we have a cable guide that actually is very helpful. If you go to our website at citizensutilityboard.org and go under resources, you'll actually see our guide catalog, and you can order for free a printer-friendly version of these guides. A donation page will pop up, but I just want to make it very clear. Don't tell my boss that I said this. You're under no obligation to give any donations to CUB. We give our services for free. If you like what the kind of service you get, please give us a donation. We also conduct consumer education events across the state of Illinois. Before the pandemic, during the pandemic, we've done hundreds of events. I'll say before the pandemic, we were doing 500 a year on average across the state of Illinois, which means on average, there wasn't a day that went by where we weren't somewhere at a church basement, a library, the city community center, trying to help people cut their utility bills, educate them. And that education campaign, we've been lucky to get some grants that help us hold these free events across the state of Illinois. And while we take very seriously taking the ComEd to court and trying to get a good refund for consumers, another part of our job in holding utilities accountable is educating consumers. So at the bottom there, I say advocates for clean and affordable energy policies in Illinois. That's very important because I think that's our niche. We work with a lot of environmental groups. There are some groups at the table right now in Springfield that, you want a group like CUB at the table that's going to be concerned not only with fighting climate change, but also controlling costs. So what we try to do, the goal is we're trying to reduce energy burden. We're trying to keep bills from going through the roof, and at the same time, trying to find creative solutions for, stopping or reversing or just protecting consumers from climate change. And that's been a very important part of our job. So like I said, we're going to go into do some quizzes, some quiz questions here. Just answer them in your head. I'll give you a little time to answer, and then we'll move on and keep score, see where you're at. If you get 8 out of 10, you are an energy Einstein. Anything less than 8 out of 8 or 8 to 10 right, anything less than that, consider giving us a call or going to a CUB event, and we'll look over your utility bills for free. Also, one other service, if you go to cubhelpcenter.com, you can actually order a free utility bill analysis. You fill out the form and a CUB person will call you. That's something that we've done during the pandemic. It's completely safe. There's no in-person contact, but you can actually fill out this form at cubhelpcenter.com, and we will get back to you. We'll give you a call back, and we'll set up even a Zoom meeting where you have one-on-one. You can talk to a consumer advocate about how to cut your bills. And we'll actually look at your bills and go over it line by line and talk to you about all the confusing charges. Okay, so quiz question number 1. What bill is the General Assembly now considering that would be the biggest, most significant energy bill in Illinois history? So the choices are the Clean Energy Jobs Act, the Path to 100 Act, the Consumers and Climate First Act, or none of the above. I'm just gonna, so the answer is, there's a lot of tricks in here, is none of the above. Actually, we were a big proponent of the Clean Energy Jobs Act. We thought it was a bill that would have found the cheapest, fastest way to get to 100% clean energy, which is what we need to do to fight climate change. And we thought it had the best ideas to do that. However, we all know we're in Springfield. We're trying, what you do is you fight for perfection, and then you try to negotiate a bill that's still going to be a win for consumers. And right now, actually, there are only proposals out there. There is no bill. The Path to 100 Act was another competing bill that was proposed by renewable energy businesses. The Consumers and Climate First Act was a bill proposed by the governor's office. Excellent bill. It borrowed a lot. It had a lot of things in common with the Clean Energy Jobs Act. Right now, what we're dealing with, and you may have seen the headlines, is we're in a prolonged process of negotiations with various parties, a lot of these parties, to try to see if we can come up with a compromise bill. We really need to do something to continue to protect our utility bills, to continue to move toward finding a way to 100% clean energy in a way that's very responsible. And so the proposal that's out there right now doesn't have a bill number, but it borrows a lot from the Clean Energy Jobs Act. And we're very happy about that because that's a bill we supported. So the answer is D, none of the above. However, we are cautiously optimistic that we're going to be able to pass a bill before the end of the summer. We're really getting to a point where we need to do something. And we feel good that we'll be able to. There's some important issues that need to be worked out, but we feel good that we'll be able to achieve that. So cautiously optimistic, send us positive vibes in Springfield. So this kind of gives a history of the different bills that were passed over time, going back to 1997. The key bills, I'm not going to go over all of them, but one of the key bills was the 2011 Energy Infrastructure Modernization Act, which did some really key updates to the grid, which were helpful. The bad thing is we opposed the bill because we didn't like the way ComEd was proposing to pay for these upgrades, and that was through something called formula rates. We're going to talk about that later. But formula rates is something that hasn't been good for consumers, and that's something we have opposed multiple times. And ComEd has kept pushing it because it's a very good deal for the company. Then in 2016, there was the Future Energy Jobs Act. That was a major step forward. It was really the first time that the state stood up and said, how are we going to do this? How are we going to fight energy burden? How are we going to solve for climate change and try to control for both? And that was a major step forward. Again, not a perfect bill. We didn't, we like some things a lot more than other things in the bill, but our measure is always, is it a net win for consumers? Is it something that it's most likely going to be a compromise bill in Springfield? Is it a compromise that still is a net win for consumers? And that's always our measuring stick. And we felt that was still a net win for consumers. And Illinois has had, over the past 8 years, has had the lowest average electric bills in the Midwest. And we think that that is one indication. Part of that has been through clean energy policy. So fighting for now, since over 2 years now, we've been fighting for strong clean energy legislation. We are hoping in the summer we're going to be able to pass something. It would bring the state to 100% clean energy by 2045. That doesn't mean that all fossil fuel, like gas stoves that in your home, I have a gas stove in my home, that doesn't mean that all that would go away in 2045. What it means is the means of producing power in the state would be only clean energy sources, which would be anywhere from nuclear energy to and by clean I mean carbon-free energy. And that would include nuclear power, that would include wind, it would include solar. It also would expand energy efficiency to record levels and help save consumers money. It would electrify transportation, and by that I don't mean everybody gets an EV necessarily. But what it would do is it would make it easier to buy an EV, but it would also do other things like electrify, city fleets, like dump trucks, buses, things like that, and allow for reducing costs that way, because these electric EV transportation can be much cheaper than combustion engine transportation. So this clean energy, why do we like this proposal before the Illinois legislature right now? Right now, it has a responsible way to get to 100% clean energy by 2045, expands energy efficiency, increases renewable energy, but it creates incentives for electrifying transportation, but it also has some incredible utility accountability issues. We all know about the ComEd scandal. That's been something that's hung over all of these negotiations. And what it would do, it would end formula rates, and it would create a new system that would have more, that again wouldn't be perfect, but it would have more regulation of ComEd before they raise rates. It also would spark an investigation to give a refund to customers for ComEd scandal. It would create an independent ethics monitor at the ICC, which would watchdog utilities for ethics. And each utility would have to have an ethics compliance officer at their headquarters. So right now, the proposal that's been out there has all of these items, and that's a big reason why Cubs supports it right now, supports this proposal, and we hope we can get to the point where it's a bill and then gets voted on. Okay, so question number 2. Cubs' latest study found that climate change unchecked could cost consumers how much on their power bills? It's $1 billion, 500 million, 11 billion, or none of the above. And see if you can come up with an answer there. The answer is, drum roll please, 11 billion. Cub came out with a study. We actually ran the numbers. We have access to anonymous energy usage data. We can't tell what an individual is using at their individual house, but it's anonymous. It's aggregate data that we get on energy usage data for ComEd customers. And we actually extrapolated over the next 30 years through 2050, if climate change is unchecked, with volatile weather patterns, hotter summers, how much more will people be using their air conditioning? And just based on air conditioning and other factors like that, energy usage going up, we figured that it would cost us about $10.9 billion over the next 30 years. There's a lot of talk about what the current proposal is going to cost consumers. There's a lot in it. But we also like to look at, if we don't pass a bill, what are some of the consequences? And this is a good example. If we don't do anything to solve for this, it's not only bad for our health, but it's bad for our electric bills. It can cause our electric bills to go up significantly. Okay, quiz number 3. We're going to turn tonight to gas. Nicor Gas saw its price for natural gas rise by what % in April? And this was as a result of, it's hard to believe, but it was a result of the volatile cold weather that caused so much pain in Texas, also led to huge problems in the natural gas distribution network across the South. The cold froze up lines, did all kinds of issues. And the main culprit was, the main problem was with the natural gas system. It just froze up and it was delayed for several days. It put a restriction, demand was up, it put a restriction on supply, and that caused major problems. And I knew when that happened, I knew that because I had experienced the polar vortex back in 2014, I knew that this would be, that this would lead to an increase in bills. And sure enough, a few months later, in April, it did. So the answer, the choices are 5%, 103%, 300%, or none of the above. And the answer is 103%. It actually, from April, and when I say this, I mean in April of 2020, the natural gas price charged by Nicor, it changes each month. In April of 2020, it was 26 cents per therm, very low. In April of 2021, it was 53 cents per therm. And that is what Nicor's price has been since April. They do a very interesting thing. This happened back in the vortex, is when they have an issue like this, an extreme issue that causes natural gas prices to go through the roof across the board for all the utilities. Nicor tends to jack up the price in 1 month and then keep it at that level for months and months and months. So this month we're paying 53. I'm a Nicor customer also. We're paying 53 cents a therm. My guess is in August we're going to see a different price. That's my guess. That's what I bet everybody in the office. But So it went up 103%. And this is a direct connection to those cold temperatures that swept across the state, led to big problems in the natural gas distribution network. That there was some people who tried to politicize it and say, oh, it was renewable energy. That really wasn't the problem. All sources of energy underperformed during that time. They were all impacted by the cold, including wind turbines. Although up here they do fine because they've weatherized those wind turbines, but everybody was affected. But the biggest problem, the biggest factor was natural gas, just froze in the lines and at the wellhead caused just severe problems. And this basically, if you go to our watch blog, each month we write a little blog about all of the natural gas prices charged by the utilities in the state. You can see the green was 2021, how elevated it is compared to March of 2021 and April of last year. And here's NICOR's. So that was 53 cents a therm. Okay, 4, how much have Illinois consumers lost to alternative electric suppliers since 2015? The choices are $1 billion, $5 billion, $11 billion, or none of the above. I shouldn't be so cheery when I give these quiz questions because some of these statistics are very painful, and this is a great example. $1 billion is the answer. Since 2015, people with alternative electric suppliers in Illinois, and that's either a municipal aggregation deal through your community, and I'm on a municipal aggregation deal right now, or a deal that you get when somebody comes to your home and pitches an offer, or over the phone, or a mailer. People have lost about $1 billion. It's actually more than $1 billion. So just the moral of the story is be very careful. We don't tell people, oh, don't go with an electricity supplier. We will tell you that right now, the way the market is, it's likely that your best bet is staying with the utility. I did switch to an alternative supplier through my community, but my community has a rock solid offer where it promises to beat or meet ComEd's price for the period of the contract. So I went with it. It also was 100% renewable energy plan, and I thought that was good as long as it controlled my costs, and it did. But so beware. And even there are other municipal community power deals, which is also called municipal aggregation, and that's where your community negotiates with the supplier. That can those also can lose money. So we're not saying don't sign up for an alternative supplier. Just be really careful. Ask if you, in terms of the community power deals, communities seem to be much more transparent, much more open, and they don't, charge any penalties for you if you try to get out. And I've seen communities announce to their residents, our deal can't beat ComEd's deal anymore. You should get out. And that's the kind of transparency we don't see from door to door people who market their services door to door or over the phone. So just beware and know that ComEd is probably your best bet. But there are other choices. So this is a great infographic that we have, and it just shows it's likely if you're with an alternative supplier, those charges are going to be listed on your ComEd bill. It's most likely going to be on your ComEd bill. So even if you're getting a ComEd bill, don't think, oh, I'm not on an alternative supplier. Look at your ComEd bill this afternoon and look in the supply section of your bill and just see if another company is listed, and then look at the price. And if you want to know, ComEd is charging right now through September 6.776 cents per kilowatt hour. That's likely your best bet, but see what you're being charged, and feel free to give Cub a call if you have any questions about that, or if you have a hard time finding if you're with an alternative supplier or not on your bill. Legislation was passed, the HEAT Act, that actually makes it much more clear on bills what the supplier is charging and what ComEd would charge if you were with ComEd and not a supplier. Just know you don't have to switch to an alternative supplier. You can stay with ComEd as your supplier. I just put in a slide here that just consider that instead of going with an alternative supplier, you could always just practice energy efficiency. There are many great programs offered by the utilities that are great. The current legislation would expand those programs, the legislation that we hope gets passed, and that would expand those programs. Don was talking about LED light bulbs. You can get LED light bulbs at a discount, programmable thermostats, smart power strips. You can actually have an expert enter your home and give free personalized energy assessment with a free installation of energy saving products. Even during the pandemic, they had alternatives where you could just get the kit sent to you. So, always just call your utility and find out what are the energy efficiency programs I could take part in. And call CUB if you have a question too. Our toll-free number is 800-669-5556. There are also other programs oops, you know what? Okay, good. There's another program that I want to tell you about. Some of you may be on this program, and it's similar to energy efficiency. It's called demand response. And ComEd offers special programs that allow you to lower energy usage on really hot days when demand is through the roof. One of the best programs is called hourly pricing. Another one is called peak time savings. I'm a part of peak time savings. But remember I said that that ComEd is charging 6.776 cents per kilowatt hour. That's the traditional rate. Most people are on that rate. However, and that's where it is. You can also go with an alternative supplier, and those tend to be higher, sometimes a lot higher. But there's another option. ComEd offers hourly pricing, and that's where you pay an hourly rate for electricity. And that can seem kind of scary. It's a rate that can change on an hourly basis. However, there are times, most of the time, the price is this green squiggly line. It's below ComEd's rate. On average, at the end of the year, the hourly price, even though it changes on an hourly basis, will be below what the utility charges for their traditional rate, which right now is 6.776. There will be times where the rates will go through the roof. And that's shown by this yellow line. There are times where it'll go through the roof. During the polar vortex that we encountered back in February, sometimes the hourly rate got really, really expensive for a very short period of time. But generally, it'll be under what the utility is charging in their traditional rates. So it's not for everyone, but it's called hourly pricing, and it has saved consumers on average about 10 to 15% on the supply side of their bills. So just consider that before you go to another supplier. You can always go check out what ComEd offers in terms of energy efficiency programs, in terms of alternative pricing plans like peak time savings and hourly pricing. Okay, question number 5, true or false? A green energy plan marketed by an alternative electricity supplier means that you're getting your energy from a renewable source, meaning those electrons that are getting pumped into your home is coming from a renewable source, a wind farm, a solar farm, and it's going right into your home. And the answer is false. Now, I want to be very clear here. This is an infographic that we put out. It's completely fine. If some of you are on green energy plans, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. You care about the environment. Also practice energy efficiency, take part in demand response, consider taking part in demand response programs like hourly pricing, things like that. But just know that if you go with the green energy plan, it can be a good thing, but it does not mean that the energy that's being pumped into your home is coming from a renewable source. What it means is that you are buying renewable energy credits. And that means, let's say you go with a 100% green plan and you use 1,000 kilowatt hours in the month of July. That means somewhere on the grid, 1,000 kilowatt hours of renewable energy is being added to the grid somewhere, not necessarily your home. The way energy works, there's no way to determine. When I switch on the light, when I plugged in my computer this morning, that energy could have come from a very dirty coal plant. It could have come from a solar farm. It could have come from a wind farm, a nuclear power plant. It could come from any source, because the way it happens is, the way the grid works is, once that energy is created, it just gets thrown up on the grid, and there's no way to control that energy going into your home. But it can still be good. It's a good way to support renewable energy. Just know that you don't have to be green. You don't have to go with a green energy supplier. You can practice energy efficiency, do all kinds of things like hourly pricing or anything like that. There are a lot of choices that you have. Don't think you need to go into it with a green energy supplier in order to be green. Okay, question number 6. What Midwestern state has had the lowest average electric bills for 8 straight years? I kind of said this earlier. So it's Indiana, Wisconsin, Ohio, or none of the above. It's another trick question. It's none of the above. Illinois. People get very grumpy about this answer because they say my electric bills aren't low. And we talk to plenty of people who call us who are in just really deep straits, in difficult positions with their utility bills, and are having a hard time affording their bills. So this is not something to do a backflip about and say, oh, we're done. But in fact, Illinois is doing something right with clean energy policy, with energy efficiency. There's other reasons for that also. Natural gas prices have been very low, and natural gas can help generate electricity. There's a number of reasons. I don't want to say it's just because of clean energy policy or energy efficiency, but those are factors. And we've had the lowest average electric bills in the Midwest for the past 8 years. Also, this EIA report, which I just got this morning, it's the Energy Information Administration, shows that we actually had the 4th lowest electric bills on average in the country in 2019. Those are the latest statistics. So there's a lot more to do. We're not done. That's why we're trying to pass more good energy legislation. This isn't the end, but we're making progress. But there's a lot more that we can do. Okay, there's a special electricity market that has wreaked havoc on our electricity bills. The market, which gives special payments to power producers to assure that the lights stay on when demand is at its greatest, counts for 20% of our power bills now. What market is this? The spot energy market, the stock market, the capacity market, or the farmer's market? I had a little fun with the farmer's market. The answer is C, the capacity market. Sarah Moskowitz, who I work with, says this great. When you pay that price for electricity, most of us are paying that 6.776 cents per kilowatt hour. That's not just for the electricity that we're using now. Embedded in that rate is a charge that we pay power producers, big companies like Exelon, big coal producers, all kinds of companies like that generate electricity on the market. And it's literally is a price we pay to assure that there's going to be enough energy in the future if we need it, if demand goes through the roof. So not only are we paying for the energy that we're using now, we're also paying in that electricity price for the energy we may use in the future. Unfortunately, the way the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission has done it in recent years is very unfair to consumers. We're hoping that there are going to be some reforms going forward that are going to make it better. One good thing is the latest auction that they held to determine what this capacity price is led to a 64% reduction in the capacity price. It was a big surprise. Now that means not now, but in June of 2022, ComEd's electricity price is going to go down. So just know that we don't know exactly by how much, but it's going to go down because the capacity price went down so far. Okay. More about the electricity capacity market. And as I said before, it's like Walmart. They build a huge parking lot to take care of Black Friday. That parking lot isn't always filled, but they want to have the capacity to fill that have that parking lot be filled if need be on a day like Black Friday or during holiday shopping season. The same thing is with power generation. Is they want to make sure they have enough energy for days when the demand goes through the roof. But unfortunately, the way they've conducted the auctions that determine capacity price have just been incredibly unfair to consumers. We're hoping to change that. Okay, what utilities are currently asking to increase delivery rates? North Shore Gas, Nicor Gas, ComEd, or Ameren, Illinois? Unfortunately, all of them are asking for rate hikes right now, and CUB is fighting these cases before the Illinois Commerce Commission. This is from our news releases page. You can see ComEd is asking for a $51 million formula rate hike. Ameren, Illinois for $64 million. North Shore Gas is asking, actually it says $10.6 million. It's been reduced through the Illinois Commerce Commission process, which is good. It's down to about $6 million. It's still too high, we think, and we're going to continue to fight it. And then Nicor Gas is asking for a record $293 million rate hike. 3 out of the last 4 years, they've asked for record rate hikes. Each one has been a record, and it's $293 million right now, and we're hoping to decrease that significantly. We're filing testimony. These cases last between 8 and 11 months. So if you do give a donation to CUB, that's one of the things we're doing is we're supporting our 2-person legal team. Okay, how large of a fine did ComEd pay to federal prosecutors who accused the utility giant of bribery to pass favorable legislation? Remember well, we're going to talk more about this with the next question, but the choices are 300 million, 250 billion, 200 billion, or none of the above. And then a bonus question is, how much of the fine went to consumers? Meaning, how much did consumers get of the money? Well, the answer is D, none of the above. They got a $200 million fine. Federal prosecutors caught ComEd in this scandal. They fined ComEd $200 million, which was a record for a corporate fine at that time. But to us, the big key factor is that consumers have gotten none of that. Nothing. Consumers haven't gotten a refund. In fact, ComEd pushes back and says, we don't want to give a refund to consumers. And that's one reason why I have this clip from the Sun-Times. We're fighting in federal court. We're working with a law firm that just got a major settlement with Facebook, and we're trying to recusing the company of racketeering to try to get a major refund for consumers. We don't know if we'll be successful. We can't ever promise, but we like that we're working with some pros. We're also working with former Governor Pat Quinn. He's one of the counsels in this case, and we're hoping to get a fair refund for consumers. I would hope it would at least be 200 million to match the corporate fine, and because consumers so far have gotten nothing. Also, in the legislation that we're fighting, we're also fighting for a provision that would start an Illinois Commerce Commission process, an investigation to explore giving consumers a refund, ComEd customers a refund for the company's scandal. Finally, quiz question number 10. At the heart of ComEd's corruption scandal is a rate-setting system that has allowed the company to pull in hundreds of millions of dollars in rate hikes over the last decade. It's been over $500 million that they've pulled in. Is this hourly rates? I hope you don't think that, because hourly rates are actually a good thing. We just talked about that. Formula rates, the qualified infrastructure plant charge, or none of the above. And it's B, formula rates. This has been a thing that we've had a problem with for years. We've tried multiple times to defeat it, and we've been turned back at the General Assembly. The really good thing, if I can say if there's any silver lining to this scandal, is that it has created a climate in Springfield that is reform-minded. We're not Pollyanna. If we get this legislation passed, there's going to be a lot of work to do by CUB and other consumer advocates to implement the bill so it's a win for consumers. There's going to be a lot of work to hold utilities accountable. There's a ton of work to do. We have to get that darn bill passed, and then if we do get it passed, just a lot of work. But one of the things that's been really frustrating is formula rates. Now, the system that they replace it with won't be perfect. It won't be the end of rate hikes, but we hope that it's going to lead to more accountability for ComEd, and also that it's going to give state regulators more teeth, to turn back rate hikes, or to make sure that the company proves that if it wants higher rates, that this is actually going to be a benefit to consumers and is going to lead to actually savings. The only other thing I'll mention, I talked about hourly rates. Consider ComEd's hourly rate, hourly pricing program, but the qualified infrastructure plant charge, that's something you see on your gas bills. That has been a horrible deal for consumers. We're trying to defeat that in Springfield. But look at your gas bill when you get home. You'll see qualified infrastructure plant charge. It's an end run around the regulatory process, and it allows the company, your gas company, to rake in more money. We've been on a years-long campaign to try to end this. We get a little closer each time, but it's an uphill battle. So that's just a nice picture of the bill. Jill, I am done. And Don, if you wanna, if we have some time for questions, that would be great. I'm sorry if I talk too long.
Hi, thank you so much, Jim. So I'll just invite Don to unmute. Are you there, Don?
I think I'm unmuted, right?
Yes, you are. We can hear you. Thanks. Thanks.
Put
Okay.
on your video too.
Okay, just a minute. Let me put on my video.
Now, is it okay if I stop sharing, Jill?
Oh, yeah, that would be
Okay.
perfect. Thanks, Jim.
Well, first of all,
So wait till you're on.
you can all hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, I want to, Jim, as always, the most enlightening information we get on what's going on in the utility world. You never fail to impress us. And I do have the first question. You mentioned nuclear as, I think you said it was clean, but isn't nuclear, there are too many chances for problems. And, you know, like just 10 years ago, Japan had a terrible nuclear explosion and all their debris ended up on our shores. Isn't nuclear eventually, and where do you do with the waste?
Yeah.
Isn't that really going to go the way of the dinosaur pretty quick, I hope? Or
John, that's a great question. And actually, I corrected myself. I shouldn't have said clean. We're in a coalition with a lot of environmental groups, and they would, you know, you can get into huge debates about whether it's clean or not. I get people at my own church talk about it. It is carbon-free electricity. I would say it's a path to getting to 100% renewable energy. Let me be very clear. The goal of everyone trying to pass this legislation is 100% renewable energy. Eventually, it's a complicated process. If you tried to do it overnight, what would happen is you couldn't do it overnight. And what would fill the gap is natural gas fired power, which is a fossil fuel. It would be a step back. It would be a problem. And also our electricity bills would probably go through the roof. So pretty much everybody other than coal plant operators have acknowledged, including, Sierra Club, NRDC, all these environmental groups, that nuclear is a bridge to getting to 100% renewable energy, that it's a way to help control costs and try to get there in a responsible way, because what we're always trying to do is the least cost way to get to 100%. I said clean energy. I should have, eventually it's 100% renewable energy. So that's a good point. I don't want to, it is cleaner than natural gas and coal. And that's the goal, is to take a step forward, but it's not the end by any stretch. The goal is to get to 100% renewable energy eventually. Thank
Great.
you, Don. Good point.
thank you.
Thanks. And Jim, there are a few questions in the chat. The first one is from Jim, and it was quite early on in your presentation. Why the delay in prosecuting the ComEd and legislative persons for their corruption?
Oh, good question. I know that the case is going through the case. I'm trying to bear with me here. So what has happened so far is that several executives with the company have been indicted. They've all pleaded innocent, and the case is just going very slowly through the court system. We all know how slowly these cases can move. There have been no new indictments. There's the sense that there are going to be some new indictments. I don't know when, but there was a recent court hearing that talked about that may have, all this is conjecture, may have indicated that there's going to be another indictment in the next few months. But it's just, been very slow going through the courts. I know that we filed a lawsuit in federal court, like I said before, and that process just goes very slow. So same with the legislative process, how slow it's gotten. That we thought we might have a bill passed by May 31st. Then we thought it would be mid-June, and now we're hoping the fight is for mid-August during the state fair when everybody's in town.
Thank you. And Ron says, do you have any thoughts about Northbrook's proposed climate action plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 35% by 2030 and 80% by 2040? For example, it will ban gas lawn mowing even by lawn services.
Yeah. Well, these are, I live in Evanston right next door, and these are always debated. Oh my gosh, the listserv has a very spirited debate. I think it's great. Any step forward, what we need to have, here's what we need to have, is we need to have a good discussion. There's a lot, we all know the way politics are these days. There's a lot of just, ripping each other apart. And, we've been highly critical at times, and other sides have been highly critical of us. And I think what my boss always says is every idea needs to come to the table. Every idea. Ideas we don't agree with. There were people talking about, going back to traditional regulation, which has its own problems, from years ago. And Dave would always say, David Claude, our executive director, every idea needs to come to the table, and we need to talk about these things and try to figure out what are the best ways, the least cost way, the cheapest way to get to 100% renewable energy. So I think it's great that communities are trying to do something. There may be disagreement on individual provisions, and that's something we need to talk about. The last time I was here, I remember some guy said, "You're crazy if you think we're going to all get rid of our gas stoves." And eventually I understand the frustration with that. And let me be very clear, when we say clean energy by 2045, 2050, we're not saying people getting rid of gas stoves, but eventually we will have to come up with solutions to doing that. Eventually we're going to have to become completely carbon free. And we're seeing some of these communities come up with ideas to do that. So as long as we're all at the table talking, maybe sometimes spirited, we're disagreeing, that's okay to disagree. But as long as we're coming up with new ideas and talking and constantly trying to figure it out, that's great. Some communities, my community puts a high, they have 100% renewable energy plan that they want everybody to sign up for. There were times that I didn't sign up for that plan. I have now because there's a bill protection there. There were other times I didn't sign up for it. I didn't agree with my community because I thought, well, I'd rather concentrate on practicing energy efficiency. That's okay. We just need to keep talking and make sure that we don't go to our separate tables because we agree with the people that we're around. We need to come to the table and keep talking.
Thank you. And Alan says or asks, can you talk about volunteers for CUB?
Oh yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So when I first came to CUB, I have to tell this story. Is the veterans at CUB said, you're never going to be able to create a volunteer program. You're just that, volunteers that you're not going to do it. They kept saying for years, I believed that. And then we got some young people who came in. One guy in particular, Matt Harvey, is still at CUB and helped spearhead getting a volunteer program. We now are up to about 30. And these are some of the most dedicated. I admire these people so much who are doing it. A couple have become board members. And so if you're interested in volunteering at CUB, please give our 1-800 number a call. We can set you up with Matt Harvey. And what's great about volunteering is that Matt is he's very intense guy. He's done a lot of good work at CUB, but he also understands that different people have different needs for volunteering. There are some people I know are volunteers who like stuffing envelopes. That's all they want to do. There are other people who actually go to events and help staff events. That's great too. They're all great. So if you want to volunteer at CUB, there are ways to do that. And Matt has been, even during the pandemic, has kept the volunteer group together and can talk with you about that. So you can call 1-800-669-5556 if you're interested in volunteering at CUB. You can also, email me if you're interested, and I will make sure to get that message to Cub. But yeah, we love to have volunteers, and it's been a great way. A lot of times people told me young people aren't interested, younger people, I say, are people much younger than me, like 20 somethings, aren't interested in their utility bills. They don't care, or people out of college, but the beautiful thing is we've gotten a lot of 20 somethings to join Cub's volunteer team because they love, helping to, stuff envelopes and fighting for that idea of clean, affordable energy. So it's for all ages. The 30 volunteers spans, from their late 20s, into their 60s and even older. And we welcome everybody. So please, if you are interested, please consider contacting Cub about that.
Well, thank you. I do not see any other questions in the chat feature. I don't see anyone waving their hands. So thank you again, Jim, and over to Don.
I have a question and then I will say something afterwards. Solar, how much is Cub pushing solar? Or has the price been coming down? And what's your position on that, Jim?
No, I appreciate you saying that. We talk about clean, affordable energy, and solar is the price of solar has come down significantly, and there are a lot of great I can't think of the word. There are a lot of great I'm losing the word here. There are a lot incentives. Thank you. There are a lot of great incentives to both on the state level and the federal level. There are tax credits and everything. So it's never been cheaper than now. It's great. The big question is whether if you do have a home that can take solar panels. That's the big question, is find out if your home is right for solar. It's not every home's right for solar. Then you have some questions about whether you want to rent your solar panels or buy them outright. I will say a lot of people go door to door, or solar salespeople push renting those or leasing the solar panels. That may not be the best deal for you. Just know that. Don't think that that's your only option, leasing. It may be a better deal to buy them outright. We have a great fact sheets on our clean energy page it gives a great introduction on rooftop solar. You should consider that. Remember, I talked about the Future Energy Jobs Act. That's another example of great legislation that was passed. Again, not perfect legislation by any stretch. There were parts of it that if it were the only part of that bill, we wouldn't have supported it. But overall, it was a win for consumers. It was a big step forward. It created, for the first time ever, community solar. And we have a special website called solarinthecommunity.com, solarinthecommunity.com. And that actually gives you information about community solar deals out there. What is community solar? If you live in an apartment which doesn't allow you to put up solar panels, if you live at a home that doesn't get a lot of sun, you can take part in community solar. And that's basically where, think of there's a solar installation somewhere in ComEd's territory. You can actually buy a piece of that solar installation. Basically, you enter into a community solar deal, you buy a piece of that, and then you get credits on your electric bill for the solar that's being produced. So that is a way. That's another great way. That's how much we support solar. Is we wanted to make it, and Cub and other groups were involved in this. We wanted to make it so that people who aren't right for solar, meaning maybe their homes don't get enough sun, they're in an apartment, can actually take part in the benefits of solar. So I would, when I said there are choices out there, I mentioned hourly pricing and power and peak time savings. Those are good programs. Practicing energy efficiency is good. And I should have mentioned, and thank you, Don, for bringing it up, is that there are that solar is a great opportunity too, and it's never been a better deal. So go to our website. The Clean Energy page has this solarinthecommunity.com a website, and it also has fact sheets on rooftop solar.
Oh, that's great, Jim. And I also just want to repeat something you said earlier, second the motion, by calling your toll-free number, 1-800-669-5556. with your utility bills, somebody will go over it and tell you if it's good or it can be improved. I know during the COVID, before COVID, you would actually come to the center, I know, for a day, and people would bring them, but they can call now and get an assessment on their bills, Jim?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Thank you, Don. If I mentioned before, cubhelpcenter.com has a link that you can click on to fill out a form, and then we'll contact you. But if you don't want to do that, you call the 1-800 number and just say, I would like to take part in this program where Cub analyzes my utility bills. What do I need to do? And they'll get you to the right person. So yeah, this is a great program we hold. We so hope to get back out in the community. We're starting to do some in-person events. We totally get it if people don't want to do that yet. And we're trying to give people, during the pandemic, we tried to give those services to people on an online basis. So yeah, if you call 1-800-669-5556 and say, I'd like to set up a utility bill analysis, we can get you to the right people, and you can set that up.
Oh, that's great, Jim. Again, thank you so much. It was really great. Jill, do you want to say anything? Are we?
That's all. My only question is, with a show of hands or in chat, did anyone get more than 8 questions right? I didn't, so I learned a lot. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. It was great.
All right. Thank you. I'll end the meeting. Thanks, everyone, and hope to see you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.